Stop for a second and look at your jeans, or your blazer, or that nice dress you just bought. Reach down. Try to put your hand inside the pocket. What happens? If you are a man, your hand probably disappears into a cavernous abyss of fabric, capable of holding a smartphone, a wallet, a set of keys, and arguably a small puppy. But if you are a woman, you probably hit a wall. Maybe the pocket is sewn shut. Maybe it's fake, just a decorative line of stitching designed to mock you. Or maybe, just maybe, it's real. But it's so shallow that if you try to put a tube of lip balm in it, it pops out the moment you sit down. We have all seen the memes. We have all heard the complaints. But have you ever stopped to ask why? Why is it that in an age of self-driving cars and artificial intelligence, half of the population still cannot carry a smartphone in their pants? Is it just bad design? Is it laziness? Or is it a conspiracy by the 60 billion-dollar handbag industry to force you to buy expensive purses? What if I told you that the missing pocket isn't just a fashion fail? It is a political scandal. It is a story that involves the French Revolution, the fear of witches, the suffragette movement, and a systematic attempt to make women dependent on men. The history of the pocket is the history of freedom. So, get ready to be angry, because today, we are digging deep into the empty space where your pockets should be. Welcome to Behind the Scenes. Let's unzip the truth. Let's start with the cold, hard reality of today. A few years ago, a data journalism site called The Pudding conducted a massive study. They measured the pockets of 80 different brands of blue jeans. They didn't just guess. They used digital calipers. The results were statistically shocking. They found that women's front pockets are, on average, 48% shorter and 6.5% narrower than men's pockets. Let that sink in. Nearly half the size. Only 40% of women's pockets can fit a modern iPhone. Almost 0% can fit a standard wallet. Meanwhile, men's pockets have evolved to carry massive smartphones, phablets, and portable chargers. This isn't just an inconvenience. It is a technological discrimination. Think about the psychology of this. When a man walks out the door, he pats his pockets. Phone, wallet, keys. He is ready. He is self-contained. His hands are empty. He is ready to face the world. When a woman walks out, she has to gather a bag, check if everything is inside, hold it in her hand or strap it to her shoulder. She is physically burdened. But it wasn't always this way. In fact, there was a time when women had pockets that were superior to anything men wear today. To find them, we have to go back to the beginning. To understand the crime, we first have to look at the time before pockets existed. If you travel back to the Middle Ages, nobody had pockets sewn into their clothes. Not men, not women, not kings, not peasants. The concept of integrated storage hadn't been invented yet. Instead, everyone carried bags tied to a belt or a rope around their waist. They were called pouches or girdles. Think of it as the medieval version of a fanny pack, but socially acceptable. It was a unisex accessory. It was equal. Men carried coins, knives, and tools in them. Women carried sewing kits, keys, combs, and snacks. In this era, your pocket was visible. It was external. And because it was external, it was vulnerable. The term pickpocket comes literally from this era. Thieves would cut the strings of these pouches, pick them, and run away with your belongings. So for security reasons, people started looking for a way to hide their valuables. And this is where the Great Schism happens. This is where history splits in two. Around the late 17th century, clothing technology evolved. Men's clothing became more structured. Tailors realized they could sew the pouches directly into the linings of breeches, coats, and waistcoats. It was a revolutionary moment for men. Men gained integrated storage. Their belongings became part of their silhouette. They could walk around with empty hands, looking nonchalant and powerful, with everything they needed tucked safely against their body. The pocket became a secret, masculine space. But for women, the story was very different. Tailors did not sew pockets into women's dresses. Why? Because women's fashion was complicated. It involved layers of petticoats, corsets, and bustles. Sewing a bag into the skirt would ruin the line. But women didn't give up. They invented something better. They invented the tie-on pocket. In the 18th century, women wore massive, wide skirts supported by petticoats and panniers. Think of Marie Antoinette. The silhouette was huge. Underneath those layers of fabric, women wore independent pockets. These were essentially huge cotton sacks tied around their waist with a string hanging right next to their hips. To access them, a woman simply reached through a hidden slit in her dress seam. These pockets were legendary. They were massive. Because they were hidden under hoops and layers of fabric, they didn't ruin the silhouette, so women could carry an insane amount of items. We actually have court records and police reports from the 18th century listing what women carried in these tie-on pockets, and it is mind-blowing. One woman in a court case was recorded carrying a watch, a sewing kit, a notebook, a flask of gin, 2 apples, a heavy iron key, and a live duck. Yes, a live duck. Another woman was found with 2 bottles of wine and a loaf of bread hidden under her skirt. These pockets gave women autonomy. They allowed women to travel. They allowed women to carry money. They allowed women to hold the keys to the household, which meant power, and to move through the world with their hands free. A woman with tie-on pockets was a woman who could take care of herself. She was a mobile inventory unit. But then, the world turned upside down. The year is 1790. The French Revolution is in full swing. The revolutionaries hated everything associated with the aristocracy. They wanted to burn the old world down. And what was the symbol of the aristocracy in fashion? Big, wide, artificial skirts with hoops and corsets. The very skirts that hid the massive pockets. So, fashion swung to the opposite extreme. The new look was the empire silhouette, inspired by the democracy of ancient Greece and Rome. Think of the dresses in Bridgerton or Pride and Prejudice. High waists, right under the bust, and skirts that fell straight down, hugging the body. The fabric was thin, often sheer muslin. Here was the problem. You cannot hide a massive sack containing a bottle of gin and a live duck under a sheer straight dress that clings to your legs. It ruins the line. It makes you look lumpy. For the sake of this new democratic fashion, the tie-on pocket had to die. The pocket was effectively banished. But women still needed to carry stuff. They still needed handkerchiefs, smelling salts, and coins. So what did they do? They invented the reticule. The reticule was the grandmother of the modern handbag. It was a tiny, decorative bag carried in the hand. And this was a disaster for female independence. Do you see the difference? A pocket leaves your hands free. You can work, you can fight, you can open doors, you can carry a weapon. A handbag occupies your hand. It makes you physically less capable. If you are holding a tiny, fragile bag, you are perceived as dainty. You are helpless. As one historian famously put it, men have pockets to keep their hands free. Women have bags to keep their hands full. It wasn't just a fashion trend. Whether conscious or not, it was a way to disable women. If she has no pockets, she cannot carry secret letters comfortably. She cannot carry a pistol. She cannot carry enough money to run away without carrying a visible bag that screams, "I am leaving." She becomes dependent on the man to pay for things because he is the one carrying the wallet. For almost 100 years, functional pockets were basically illegal for fashionable women. If you wanted pockets, you were seen as masculine or unrefined. But in the late 19th century, a new movement began. The new woman emerged. Women started riding bicycles. They started working in offices. They started demanding the right to vote. And you know what they wanted? They wanted their pockets back. The suffragettes, the women fighting for voting rights, actually viewed pockets as a political tool. The Rational Dress Society was formed in London to campaign against corsets and for useful clothing. They created manuals on how to sew pockets into skirts. It became a political statement. If you wore a suit with pockets, you were dangerous. You were asking for male privileges. In 1910, a journalist famously wrote about the suffragette suit, claiming that with plenty of pockets, women could finally rival men in the workplace. It was seen as a threat. Then came the 1920s. Coco Chanel, who famously stole her boyfriend's clothes because they were more comfortable, started sewing real pockets into women's jackets. She famously said, "I gave women a sense of freedom. I gave them back their bodies." It seemed like the battle was finally won. Women started wearing trousers. During World War II, Rosie the Riveter had massive pockets in her overalls because she had work to do. We were so close to equality. But then came the final villain of our story. After World War II ended, men came back from the front. Society wanted women to leave the factories and go back to the kitchen. They wanted to restore the traditional order. In 1947, Christian Dior introduced the new look. It was hyper-feminine, tiny waists, big heavy skirts. Christian Dior was famously quoted saying, "Men have pockets to keep things in, women for decoration." Designers decided that pockets added bulk to the hips. And, apparently, the worst thing a woman could possibly do was look like she had human anatomy. So, they started sewing pockets shut, or making them tiny, or putting flaps on jackets that led to nowhere. The fake pocket was born. It was a step back in time. Fashion once again prioritized the male gaze and the perfect silhouette over female functionality. And at the exact same time, the luxury handbag industry exploded. Hermes, Louis Vuitton, Gucci. They all began to market handbags not just as accessories, but as necessities. This brings us to the conspiracy theory part of the video. Is it true that clothing manufacturers remove pockets to force you to buy bags? Well, let's look at the economics. The luxury handbag market is worth over $60 billion a year. It is one of the most profitable sectors in the entire fashion industry. If every woman had deep functional cargo pockets in her coat and jeans, would she spend $3,000 on a Louis Vuitton bag just to carry her keys and wallet? Maybe, but maybe not. It is financially beneficial for the fashion industry to keep you pocketless. They created a problem, no storage, and sold you the solution, an expensive bag. But there is hope. The pocket gap is slowly closing. We are seeing a revolution in dresses. Every time a girl buys a dress and realizes it has pockets, she immediately shouts to everyone in the room, "Look, it has pockets." It brings genuine joy. We are seeing the return of cargo pants and utility wear. Brands are starting to realize that women actually carry things. So, the next time you get frustrated because your phone falls out of your back pocket and cracks the screen, remember, it's not just bad luck, it is history. The lack of pockets was never just about a streamlined silhouette. It was about control. A pocket is privacy. A pocket is readiness. A pocket is the ability to walk out the door with your hands free and face the world. So ladies, if you find a dress with pockets, buy it. Vote with your wallet. And gentlemen, next time you complain about holding your girlfriend's phone in your pocket, just remember, you are carrying the weight of centuries of patriarchy in there. Be nice about it. This was Behind the Seams. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what is the weirdest thing you've ever tried to fit in a fake pocket? A duck? Let me know. See you in the next one.